Hi, I'm Billy, and I'm here to answer your questions. John asks, how's life? Yeah, it's alright. Patrick asks, what is your favourite FiveWhoFans video that you have made, and why? I'd say probably an angry letter to Stephen Moffat. It was our 50th anniversary video. It's one of those videos where we got everyone involved as well, so it was a little special, a little bit longer than most videos, and quite a bit of effort went into it because we wanted it to be something special and funny and something that kind of took elements from everything we've done so far in the channel, and so I'm quite pleased with it. In terms of a video that I haven't made, then I would say at the moment my favourite is probably Is Adric Cool? I really like that video. Harry asks, do you think there should be 2 showrunners when Chibnall takes over? Well, I think this is probably based off of an article that came out, I think it was on the Radio Times in the last couple of months, saying that apparently Chris Chibnall is building an American-style writer's room, which means there's a lot more kind of collaboration between the writers, and they essentially kind of work as a team when producing episodes. It does work incredibly well in America. I mean, the prime example I can think of is the US version of The Office. I think out of all the different rumours I've heard about what's coming after Stephen, this is probably the most exciting one that I've heard, for me anyway, because I think that Doctor Who could really benefit from that sort of collaborative process. I think when you have one person in charge, after a while it does become quite stagnant, and also when you don't have people working together as closely as they could be, it means that it can become very inconsistent and very hit and miss. Luke asks, what is your favourite Big Finish audio drama? I don't think I can think of one in particular. Recently, I very much enjoyed the David Tennant audios and the Diary of River Song. In terms of their old stuff, early on they didn't focus too much on doing box sets. It was just one sort of story at a time, and I really enjoyed that Davros story. Scherzo, however you're supposed to pronounce it, the one with Paul McGann and Charlie. Really good. And I've listened to that one multiple times. But if you had to sort of pin me down and say like if there's any particular story or box set, I'd say probably the first series of the Diary of River Song. I think. And that must sound very strange to people who are fairly familiar with me, because I'm not a huge fan of the character, but I think what Big Finish have done with it is really interesting, and it was a really engaging universe. And because sometimes with these audios you can lose interest. It's you have to really kind of have an attention span for it, and when you've only got input through the ears, you look away and you get distracted. I'm sure everyone's familiar with that. With River Song, it was captivating, and it gave the character, it made her an interesting character, and I really enjoy it. I highly recommend it to everyone, even if those people don't believe me. Let's just say when they announced the second series of the Diary of River Song, I was kind of the first to pre-order it. Jamie asks, how do you think iconic monsters such as Daleks and Cybermen should be handled by future writers for the show? Well, the answer's simple, really. Don't use them. Certainly don't use them for a long space of time, because at the moment they're coming out, being carted out once a year. I think the cameos are hurting the most. When they make slight appearances in Time of the Doctor and Wedding of River Song. That's kind of damaging. You want to have a long space of time, a long span of time when they're not on the screen. And that means that when they do come back, it is a very big deal for both the Doctor and the audience, and it generates a hype and excitement, because at the moment it's like they're here every series. What is there to get excited about? The Dalek stories we've had in recent years haven't been the strongest. I'd argue that we haven't had a great Dalek story since Parting of the Ways. And if we hadn't had a Dalek story since then now would be the perfect time to have one. Cybermen, same goes for them, A lot of cameos, particularly in the Matt Smith era. Let's just shunt them away in the shadows where they belong. and when they do come back, let's make a big deal out of it. Matt asks, what composition of Murray Gold's has been your favourite to date? Probably not any of the kind of comedic stuff. It's difficult to say I Am the Doctor because it's been used so much. I know I enjoyed that at first, but when you listen to something a lot, then it loses its impact, and it becomes a victim of its own success in a way because you're so used to it. Do you know what I'd say? The rendition of the theme tune that he used for the 2005 series to 2007. I really enjoyed that. The low sort of bassiness, and it had just the right amount of orchestra to synth, the orchestra to synth ratio, and it was something that got me very excited. I do also think though that it's time to get a new composer because it has been over 10 years now, and I'd be saying that if anyone was doing the music, because this show does improve under change. It thrives on change. It needs change to survive. So yeah, it would be nice to get some fresh blood in there. Sam asks, which other Doctors would you most like to see the Ninth Doctor crossover with? Well, do you know what? In the first place, I'd like the Ninth Doctor to come back. I don't think he'd be that interesting with Peter Capaldi. I think when you do multi-Doctor stories, what you really need is a really kind of contrasting incarnation so that they can properly lock horns and bang heads, because that's conflict's the most interesting thing ever, isn't it? So you'd want someone that's completely opposite. You want chalk and cheese, so I'd say someone jolly like David Tennant or Matt Smith. Incidentally, I think with Day of the Doctor, the reason that I think John Hurt improved it a great deal was David Tennant and Matt Smith were far too similar in terms of their joviality. You needed a cynical, dry Doctor like John Hurt's War Doctor in there to have that conflict and to play around with the contrast and how different they are. So probably someone like David Tennant. I think that would be a lot of fun, particularly because they're kind of of the same era as well, but they're really different. I just think that would be really interesting. Lewis asks, what is your favourite and least favourite Stephen Moffat episode out of the last 11 years? I think Stephen's, for the most part, he's done more good than bad. I think like with Series 6, a lot of people will say that went downhill, but I'd argue that even if that was the case, Stephen's episodes were probably the strongest out of that lot. I know that's kind of contrary to popular opinion. Probably my favourite one that he's done so many that it's difficult to recall them all off the top of my head, but maybe the Empty Child two-parter. I'm certainly part of the camp that enjoys Stephen's work the most when he's given a whole year to write one story. It definitely benefits from it, and it definitely shows. So yeah, I'd probably say The Empty Child is probably my favourite, and Doctor, Widow and the Wardrobe, which... that's my least favourite. I don't think I can talk about it. It upsets me. At a deeply personal level as well. It was like an affront. Dominic asks, how did you vote in the New Who referendum, and what was the result for that matter? If you go on the FiveWhoFans website, fivewf.co.uk/New Who referendum, I'll probably put a link around here, then you can find the result, and the result is that we've decided to stay and keep the New Who as part of the canon. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what you voted. I'm glad that we voted to stay. If we voted for New Who to leave, I don't know what people would have expected us to do, like write into the office of Stephen Moffat and just say, excuse me, the people have spoken. Personally, I voted for New Who to leave, but obviously if you pin me down and ask me seriously, of course I'd want it to stay. I just wanted to stir the pot a bit, you know what I'm like. I'm a horrible person. Thomas asks, do you think the next Doctor should wear a hat? Absolutely. Jenny asks, on a scale of 1 to pi, how much do you think Adric's love of maths is out of hand? Absolutely. Daniel asks, how many Nymons have you seen today? Absolutely. Lyle asks, why did you kill Drashig? Absolutely. Did part of you die with Drashig? Absolutely. Lucas asks, how did the idea of Aimless Wanderings come about? And there's a second question there that I think means if you were to play the actual Doctor, would you be like Pompous or any of the others? So for those of you unfamiliar, we do produce comedic audio adventures called Aimless Wanderings, which is sort of a comedy spoof Doctor Who, featuring a variety of fictional incarnations of the Doctor that go about righting wrongs and stumbling over the creases in eternity. I think the idea of Aimless Wanderings came about fairly organically. It wasn't intentional, it just sort of developed as we went along. There are a couple of like really early videos where I spoof a classic Doctor, and then we did that video called Classic Doctor Who Sucks, which it doesn't, just putting that out there now. And then I went through a sort of phase of discovering Big Finish and listening to some fan audios as well that are out there, like Dan Productions, who are great. They also sort of produce sort of sometimes comedic, sometimes more serious audio, Doctor Who audios, and it was something that I was really interested in, and at first it was just sort of me producing these audios, and it's kind of grown. You know, Dan got involved as another Doctor, and then when we did the 50th, we did a special audio, and we got John as the Dynamite Doctor, and it's just sort of kept growing, and we've now sort of developed our own universe. If I was to play the Doctor, which I think that question might have been getting at. Firstly, that's not happening. I'm happy to say, and I'm sure everyone else is breathing a sigh of relief that no one's ever going to ask me to play the Doctor. But if I was, which I won't, I guess I would channel Pompous. It's honestly not something I've put a great deal of thought into, but yeah, I guess. Also, your girlfriend wants a pug and you want to call it Martin. Brilliant. It's a good name for a pug. Brian asks, who do you relate to more, Drashig, Pompous Doctor, Pug, or hybrid of all three? Well, I have a lot in common with a pug and Drashig because I like to eat things. Evident enough. I don't think I have the confidence to be as sassy as the Pompous Doctor. Whatever you think my online demeanour is, it's not how I am in real life. I'm terribly, cripplingly shy. Do you know what? I'm gonna be really cheeky and say none of those, and say a hybrid of just Drashig and a pug. Jaren asks, should the big bad of Series 10 be the national moment? I think maybe that was the original intention, and that's why it's been postponed for a year. Doctor Who and national moments repel each other like magnets. They refuse to come together, and you know they can't even belong in the same year as each other. So I think not. I think if we want the show to still be on television, then national moments should not play a part. Max asks, will we ever see Alganon again? Alganon is an inflatable Dalek voiced by Stuart Hardy, i.e. He Who Moans. He's been in a couple of videos this year already. It was kind of an intention of mine to maybe bring him back and just do discussion videos with me and this inflatable Dalek. But time will tell. I like Algernon, but it takes a hell of a long time to inflate him. He's currently stuffed away in a box, because there would be no room for him here otherwise. AJ Williams asks, how can you live with yourself? Brackets, just kidding. We tend to share the same opinions on Doctor Who. AJ. The answer is with extreme difficulty. Josh asks, what is your favourite Peter Davison story? Do you know what? I'm going through a bit of a Peter Davison phase at the moment. I've yet to watch all of Classic Who, but this year I've watched a few. I feel, the Five Doctors is definitely my favourite, but I think that would be wrong with me to call that Fifth Doctor story when really it's a celebration of the last sort of 20 years. I like how grim Resurrection of the Daleks is. I think that might be a bit of a bias on my part though, because that's one of the stories I grew up with. I also think Earthshock is smashing. Case of Androzani, I think like Peter Davison's Doctor doesn't really stand out as a Doctor, but I also think he's probably got the best stories. I really enjoyed Four to Doomsday. I watched that for the first time this year and I really enjoyed it. It kept my attention and I was able to watch it in one sitting. Earthshock or Resurrection? One of the two. You pick. Screen Doctor asks, Clara, Rose, Donna, Snog, Marry, avoid. I think it's safe to say that they would all avoid me. As Cameron, that's a good name, asks, do you view yourself as the writer of the group? I feel like I'd be a bit presumptuous with saying that. I don't think I'd introduce myself to others saying, hi, I'm Billy, I'm the writer on FiveWhoFans. I think I'm probably the only one out of the main five that aspires to be a writer. It's something that I want to do for a living. It's something that very few people are able to do, that are good enough to do for a living. But yeah, that's what I want to do with my life. Ideally, it might be that that's never the case, but we'll see. And I think I probably do a fair amount. I've had a hand in quite a few of the videos this year. I've written quite a lot for Crystal and Dan's videos in particular, and I'm really happy with what we've done. But I also think it's with FiveWhoFans, it has to be a collaborative thing. I think that's what we're best at. I think that's when we're at our strongest, when we're all working together. So I don't think you can pin it down on one person. But I must admit, I'm probably the one that enjoys it the most out of the five of us. I mean, if people are struggling with a video or something in terms of the writing, I guess they'll come to me. I really hope I'm not sounding really presumptuous here, but I guess that might be how it is. I don't know. Or I'm wrong. I'm being an idiot. George asks, what are your thoughts on Bill? I don't know. I've seen one scene of her and she seems like a Clara carbon copy cutout companion thing. Honestly, I don't have an answer for you. I'm not judging at this stage. Luke asks, where did you get the Pompous Doctor's jacket and what do you want to see from Asbill? The Pompous Doctor's jacket is from a thrift shop. It's actually a woman's jacket. It's also the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And I got it for about £3, worth every penny. What do I want to see from Asbill? Something different, and ideally, do you know what? An actual character. I think that would be great. So someone that seems like a genuine person is something that I'd really like to see, regardless of how likable they are. I think if you have a human being, they will have their strengths and their weaknesses, and they will be automatically likable for that alone. But we'll have to wait and see, won't we? I don't have any expectations at this stage. Lewis asks, classic Who or modern Who? I don't know where that places the TV movie. I like a bit of both, really. I don't think it's fair to categorise them now. There's all these different subcategories now. You've got Russell, and then within that Tennant and Eccleston, and with classic you've got John Nathan Turner, and then you've got the script editors, and I don't know. I think for me the golden era was Eccleston. I very much enjoyed series 1. I still do. I think that's probably the show at its height. Hayden asks, will Drashig come back in a fantastic, well thought out, emotional plot twist? This is Drashig from It's Never Omega, an action figure shoebox sitcom that Phoenix and myself produce. No, Drashig is not coming back. Drashig is dead. Drashig will stay dead until the end of time, as all people who die do. I think if we just decided suddenly to ignore everything and just bring Drashig back completely out of the blue, suddenly he's just alive one day, I think that would be really cheating our audience. I don't think our audience would stand for it, and they shouldn't, because that's just bad storytelling, really. And we aim to tell the best stories, as you can tell from our track record. So many good stories, like there was a seal in one of them. As David, great name, asks, which Doctor Who villain would you want most to return? The Absorbaloff, the Giant Rat, the Crotons, or the Drashigs? Well, obviously, Drashig would be my number one choice, but Drashig is dead. I don't know where that puts the rest of his race, but I imagine the entire species is in mourning, certainly for the foreseeable future. 12th Doctor action figure, if that is your real name, asks, what is life like as the funny one? I don't know. Ask Livy. He then goes on to ask, if you could become any Doctor Who action figure, what would it be? God, there are so many great ones, aren't there? Like I say, Drashig's dead, so that can't happen. I really like the coat on this Tom Baker. I really like the texture on it. But with all the Doctors, they have really long coats, which means they can't actually sit down on furniture, so I can't see that. I mean, I think Omega's actually the most flexible out of the bunch that I have anyway. He can actually sit down properly. So I'd go for that. Sitting down is one of my favourite pastimes. Richard B. Brookes asks, yeah, I've got a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you? How dare I? How dare I? What kind of a colour is purple anyway, Richard? Jacob's coming with a challenge. Can you come up with a Doctor Who story on the spot? No. George asks, what do you recommend doing to fill the empty voids due to no Doctor Who this year? I mean, it depends what you want more of, really. If you want more Doctor Who, there's a bit of a back catalogue, really, of other stories, old stories you could watch. There's always Big Finish and comics, but I don't think, and I think the people who make comics and audios would agree, it doesn't serve as a substitute. It's more of an additional piece that you can enjoy on top of it. So that's the best that you're gonna have to do for now. In terms of television, there has actually been a lot of good TV this year. Depending on how old you are, I mean, most of the good television I've experienced this year has been sort of fairly gritty adult stuff. Happy Valley, Better Call Saul, second series of Daredevil was alright. Game of Thrones, really good, especially this year, it has been incredible. Definitely my favourite TV show. I don't think I've ever sort of responded or found myself reacting to a television show the way I have with Game of Thrones. It's completely immersive and is so rich and you know, engaging. I've gotten into comics a little bit. I read Batman Year One, that was good. Walking Dead TV show for me has gone downhill a bit, but I really like the comics. The comics they've done a good job. Need to get the next compendium actually. I just make stuff. In relation to Doctor Who, I've gotten a fair amount of Big Finish, and I make things like It's Never Omega and Aimless Wanderings. So yeah, anything, just anything. Maybe go outside. I don't know, I've tried it a couple of times. It only ends in pain. Stuart Hardy asks, what does yellow mean to you? When I was a kid, I decided that yellow was my favourite colour, and it has been since, because not many people like yellow, and I felt sorry for it as a colour. I don't know what that says about me, that I immediately humanise a colour. I think it's a happy colour as well. It's a pleasant shade, depending on what one you're going for. I mean, there's a lot of different types of yellows. Billy asks, why have you stayed on 5WF for so long? I have no idea. It's weird being like the last of the original team that we started with in 2012 when we first kind of came back in a big way. It's I'm very happy with the team we have at the moment. I have no idea who's going to leave next, or whether we're just going to stick it out and just all decide together that it's all over. If such a thing is ever going to happen, it might. I don't know. I don't know why I've stayed for so long, and I don't know how long it's going to be before I leave, if I leave. Sorry, I feel like that's a bit of an inadequate answer, but I'm afraid that's all I have for you, really. According to the rules of FiveWhoFans, I should be the next to go. So a few people might be rejoicing at that. Because it's always been someone from the original team leaving, so, you know. Briar Hart asks, how did you and Phoenix really come up with the idea for It's Never Omega? Well, for those of you familiar with the character options figures, they release box sets of things, and one of their action figure sets was Drashig, Auton, and Omega together, and they were bunched together under the title Enemies of the Third Doctor. But it's such a strange combination of monsters. Even though they have that in common, aside from that, it just looks ridiculous. And when I first saw it, I immediately thought that just looks like a sitcom in the making. And after a late night discussion with Phoenix and John Granston, we came up with something, and we just went with it. I think the entire of the first series of It's Never Omega got written over the course of maybe 12 hours. And finally, As David asks, are there any stories that you hate that everyone else likes, or any stories that you like that everyone else hates? Yeah, obviously. I mean, we all have different tastes, don't we? Love and Monsters, I completely, unironically, and without any shame, to some people's surprise, I adore Love and Monsters. It's a great episode, and it still baffles me that it's viewed as in a very unpopular light, especially considering in my view it feels like a love letter to the fans, and in a profound sense, not just a let's chuck fan service at you. It was speaking about that community, and it's something that I genuinely think is one of the best episodes we've had. It's bold, it's experimental, it's profound. That's something I don't like that everyone else seems to. Probably listen. I was baffled. I was really confused as to why people seem to be leaping on Listen as one of the best episodes ever. To me, it felt very forced and pretentious, and I didn't really know what they were trying to do other than to make an award-winning episode. It felt like awards bait, but it didn't say anything to me. It didn't feel like it was anything of substance. All flash, no bang, and I think that's something that reflects a fair amount of the show that I'm not too happy with at the moment. Well, we've reached the end of the Q&A. Well done for staying on this long, if you have. Sorry if I've been a bit boring. For those of you interested in FiveWhoFans and how we work, we've gone back to 1 video a week rather than 2, so that we can focus more on producing quality content, and we've got more time to do it because, you know, we've kind of been struggling a little bit under the current system. I don't know how people can just how like you get one person running a channel and producing like a video every day. It's alien to me. But you know, we're going to go back to 1 video a week, which we've done very well with in the past, and hopefully you'll see some really good content. I've swapped videos around in the schedule as well, so in a couple of weeks you've got me again. Phoenix and I are creating something very special. It's another Doctor v Doctor video. It's something that I'm very excited about. So thank you very much for sitting through this. I hope it's been informative. If you have any further questions for me, post them in the comments below and I will reply in the comments section if I can. Take care. Hope you guys are all enjoying the hiatus. We're halfway through now, guys.
What is it you seek, Phoenix?
I've been looking for you.
Why?
I don't know, I just wanted to find you.
You never needed to. I'm always right here with you.
No. No, I'm nothing like you. I am a grown-up.